So I'll start again. Dr. Christine Nazarian is a licensed marriage and family therapist and registered art therapist based in California. She's currently, has her doctorate in psychology and in marital and family therapy. She's an adjunct professor teaching lifespan development, diversity, and family theory studies. She has experience in the areas of providing art psychotherapy for diverse clients and leading mindful art and mental health events. Dr. Nazarian, thank you so much for spending this morning with us, and I will turn it over to you. I believe you have the ability to screen share, and feel free to begin, inshallah.
Thank you so much, and good morning to everyone, and thank you for allowing me to come here and share from my experience and expertise how we can best support the students at New Horizon, as well as you parents that are joining us today. It's been a rough year and a half with the pandemic and COVID and so many changes. So New Horizon really taking this initiative to having a spotlight and the time to talk about what wellness is, resiliency, mental health, and providing some tools and ideas for you parents just shows how connected they are to their students and committed they are to the well-being of the campus and the school altogether. So as was shared, my name is Christine Nazarian. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and a registered art therapist. And I also have my doctorate in psychology in marriage and family therapy studies. If you are interested to know more about me and my practice, you can look up Artful Psych. That is my entity that has encompassing my private practice, community events like this, and other social media outlets to spread awareness around mental health and art therapy. And I also have my email here. If you have any follow-up questions or think of anything that you'd like to reach out, I'm more than open to that, and you can send me an email, okay? So let's get started with just a bit of an overview of what your kids in this stage of life, what are they going through? What are some of the main aspects of development? They are definitely growing in their self-understanding. They're starting to connect with who they are, their personality traits. Lots of social connections are happening. A lot they're getting from their peers, from their family, from siblings. And all of that is building into their self-esteem, who they are, their general perspectives of the world, and especially knowing that the pandemic really just isolated a lot of us and had that big social component on pause for a period of time. It is so crucial to look at how it may have impacted the kids and what we can do to create preventable any mood or mental health stressors, and what we can do to really strengthen their well-being. They're also becoming increasingly more empathetic. They're starting to connect more with their emotions at this stage of life. And lots of children are changing the way they learn and how they behave or handle their emotions. From what worked when they were younger is now becoming a bit more intellectual and inward. So their overall world connections has been shifting, and a lot of that is stemming from their connections and deep relationships. They need lots of extra care. They've got growing bodies, changing bodies, and so they also are changing physically as well as mentally and emotionally at this stage of their lives. So what is well-being? When we talk about well-being, it is an overall encompassing array of different aspects of our lives, from our emotional wellness to our spiritual wellness, intellectual wellness that they get from school and learning, physical wellness, lots of changes in their bodies. They're starting to get more active, if that's engaging in sports or dance or other movement. Even environmental wellness, so them connecting to their space and the world around them. Financial wellness, not as much for this age, but they are very in tune with the stressors going on in the home, if there are financial ones, and things like that. So they're on the cusp of deepening this aspect of wellness. And occupational wellness for this age group is going to school. Their occupation right now is being a student. So them feeling confident in their classes and how they're learning, and getting a well-rounded education. And lastly, that social wellness aspect of their friendships, their peers, their family life, siblings, parent connections. All of those aspects are building what we call wellness and well-being, and keeping in mind how these may overlap in different ways, how spiritual wellness and social wellness and education definitely are overlapping for your kids, and how we can find strength in those overlaps and finding support in combining, if they're getting positive emotional feelings from their school and they feel safe, and they also have their spiritual wellness of learning and their religious practices. And then we also have that social wellness of feeling connected and comfortable and in a safe space. We're able to encompass a lot of these aspects and strengthen them. All of this is going to impact how a child feels about their self-worth and how they feel they can accept both their positives and sometimes the imperfections they may feel. And also, how are they going to manage stress? The stronger we find our wellness is in our life, then we're more capable to manage these big stressors. And if that's learning how to balance new responsibilities, how to approach maybe stressors or hardships. I'm sure kids have lots of friends, and learning different cliques or different hardships and how they can manage that stress can really be strengthened by how well their overall well-being is. It's going to also support their thinking and their cognitive abilities, because if things feel settled, they can concentrate and connect to the world. This will help them be more analytic and more creative. And it also will support their emotional overall states. They'll be better to emotionally regulate. And what that means is how well can they kind of calm down from these stressful situations, or how well can they recognize I'm having some big emotions, maybe I need some extra support, or maybe I should get some extra self-care or do a journal, or know how to approach when they have these big emotions without some of those feelings of shame or guilt around them. And also, overall well-being is going to support how they love, how they connect with others, how they receive love, and how they give love. And that ability to trust and build intimate relationships, and to have connections that feel comfortable and self-disclosing will create overall better children and better teens, and they're going into high school soon enough. And those big stressors will also be better met if their well-being is established and feels on solid structure and ground. And well-being leads to more resiliency. And we talk about resiliency as that ability to kind of take on the world and feel confident about it. The truth is, middle school kids are trying to feel more stable in who they are. They're in a real discovery stage. And the more that that is established, the more that they can feel confident in their skills, the more willing they are to participate and engage in the world around them. It also helps support them in self-control, really thinking things through, being able to manage the hardships that come with life. How well can they bounce back from stress, such as this pandemic, such as maybe changes within the family that can go on. You know, they may have siblings going out of the house or moving on to their own different lives, or different parent stressors, or just different stressors within their friendship groups. And having a strong resiliency will help them better bounce back, be able to understand what's going on, feel it, but then also move forward so they can focus on their other priorities, such as school, extracurriculars, family time, their religious practices, and all of those things. So we really want to be focusing on how wellness and resiliency are interacting and how they are going to support your kids be better adolescents and teens and take on the big stressors that come with life. All right. So how do we build resiliency and wellness? It sounds great. We want it, right? We want it for our kids. We want it for ourselves. So what are the components that we find to be the most beneficial? The first one can be temperament and mastery approach. And what that means is kind of our general overall ability to cope with stress. And that's a bit of biology, a bit of genetics, but definitely gets shaped and formed in how well we feel that we can master things in our life. And as kids, those masteries may look very small, right? As toddlers, it may look like how well they brush their teeth in the morning and feeling a mastery of that. Or when they start going to school, how well they master some of these tasks like the spelling tests or math tests and feeling like, oh, I could do this. It was hard. I didn't know, but I learned and I studied and then I mastered it and I feel that sense of confidence. And even in relationships, being able to master connecting those around us, playing well with others, learning how to approach and communicate and be assertive for yourself, that type of mastery can also be a great support for resiliency. Another great strength of resiliency we find is warm and well-organized families. And what that means is, parents, this is all for us, right? The more we connect, the more we provide a family that shows love and care, the more the child is going to feel comfortable and open. And when we say well-organized family, what that mostly means is consistency. It means providing that, you know, every Friday we have family dinner time, and on Sundays we go on a walk to the park together, and we do our homework time, and we go connect with our other family and do creative things like going painting or playing sports. And finding that consistency can really be a great support for children and them feeling connected and grounded. So it's more than just the, oh, we go on one big vacation once a year, and that's when we connect with our kids. It's really about what day-to-day moments are we creating within the family that feel safe and comfortable and a bit reliable. And that is going to create more trust for the relationships within our families. I'm reading some of the chats. Let me, I want to answer one of these questions and then I'll get back to our resiliency factors. So someone asked, recommend any regular meetings for adolescents in which they can discuss these issues with her, either with a group or individually. We're actually, towards the end of our presentation, we'll answer these questions directly, but we are going to have some great things in store for us of how to implement these ideas. So back to our resiliency, we also find that when your children have connections with other adults outside the family that offer support and coping, it can be a great strength. And at times, this can look like extracurricular activities like their coach for their soccer team, or a dance instructor, or a singing teacher. And even the people at the school, the staff, other support or groups that they may have, having someone out, another adult outside of their family, can really build in the idea that we can trust those around us and trust that there are other good, caring people in my life. So support systems we want to really focus on are family, parents, peers, their friendships, and teachers. And also thinking what extracurricular activities or what things can I help my child engage in, such as leadership activities, academic teams or clubs, creative pursuits such as art, music, and then athletic participation, different sports, team sports or individual sports like tennis or golf. Can be great. And all of this is really helping support autonomy in early adolescence. And autonomy is that sensation that they feel safe and comfortable with who they are, and they can connect to other people, but not feel completely enmeshed or completely stuck to them, but know that they are there if they need it, but they are independent and strong on their own as well. So it's kind of this perfect balance of, I know who I am, and I know I am strong and resilient, but I also know I've got a safe pack and a safe group of adults or people that care and love me that I can go to when I need. And that's especially important at adolescence, where we find teens become very, I want to be on my own. They don't feel the need as much to be connected to adults or other peers. And you may feel that pull a little bit in the next coming years. But if we build that connection now, if we build those regular routines, that regular trust and connecting emotionally with our kids now, when that teenage time comes, it's less likely to feel as strong as a pull, and they will know that you are there as a strong base for them. So how do we do that? How do we build some of these things? And we're going to veer a little bit into some neuro brain information, just so you get a bit of idea of what's going on in that head of theirs, because I'm sure you've looked at your kid and said, what are they thinking? How did they get here? How did they make this decision? Did they think at all? Or are they thinking too much? So I'm going to just break down a few components of the brain, just so we have a little understanding of what's actually going on, and then how our actions are actually supporting deep neurological and biological changes. It's more than just what's on the surface. We can make actual changes within the mind, and that is going to create lifelong change in who they are and how they approach life and their overall wellness and resiliency. So our brain, this is a lot stems from Dr. Dan Siegel. He's a psychologist based in UCLA. He's done a lot of work on mindfulness. He's a great resource for parents. He does a lot around parenting and childcare and the neuropsychology, and a real emphasis on mindfulness and the benefits of mindfulness. So a lot of this is from him. So I have a little, we call it our handy model. And if you think of the brain, there are different parts. And this first part right here is very much so, we call it the reptilian brain. It has our basic needs such as sleep, thirst, hunger, restroom activities. All of those things come from our stem of our brain, our reptilian brain. And then when you move a little up, you have this emotional center of the brain, kind of big feelings. And that's with my thumb here. And those are kind of our limbic system and other systems of the brain that connect to our emotions, such as sadness, anxiety, happiness, also our reward systems. What is telling us feels good, what signals that this is a good thing, I want more of this in my life, and also our pain receptors. So that hurt, that was not easy, that was a hard time. So that emotional part kind of nestles right in the middle. And this last part right here, That's called our prefrontal cortex. And that helps us with our logical thinking, thinking of future consequences, um, the part of the brain that helps slow us down and remind us, oh, is this a good decision or a bad decision? And the truth is, that part doesn't fully develop until we're in our 20s. And thinking of our kids and our teens and the fact that that's still in the works, it's not necessarily fully all there, kind of helps understand why did they make that impulsive choice, or why didn't they think through that not studying was going to have the consequence of not doing as well on the test, or not doing your laundry is going to have you not have the shirt you want to wear the next day to school. And it's part of that brain that's still in the process of getting there. And the truth is, when we also have very big emotions like excitement or overwhelm or anxiety or real deep sadness, that part of the brain flips and disconnects. And especially those big emotions that feel that they overdrive us, like anger, really can disconnect this part of the brain. And what happens when that happens is then they're driving their actions on their biggest feelings and their primal instincts, which isn't necessarily the best time to make big choices or really think of all the hardships that are going on. And this happens even to adults, us too. When we have really big emotions, that part of the brain can flip and disconnect. And that's okay. It's part of human nature. It's part of how we're built. But what we can do about it is learn the skills to help slow us down, to help connect, even if we are in this more highly emotional state, and how to help bring back our lids and help us make good choices. And those are active things that we can learn. We're going to learn here today all together that can help connect the brain and be more full for supporting our kids and honestly ourselves to connect better to the moment and help us when things feel too overwhelming. So what we want to do that really helps is connect and redirect. This is our healthy mind parenting tip of the day. Connect and redirect. So when we feel our kid may have flipped their lid, which I'm sure we've seen, right? When you see them maybe crying very hysterically, could be even very emotional, uncontrollable laughter. It can be them very angry and upset when they slam that door. There is a high chance that they're not fully in a connected state. And instead of trying to meet them with your whole brain, it can sometimes help to open yourself up emotionally and first try to connect with them emotionally of what's going on in the situation. And what that means is slowing down to ask them, what's going on? What are these big emotions that you're feeling? Help them recognize what is happening in the moment that feels so overwhelming. Helping them also feel kind of normal that big emotions happen. We're all human. We have ranges of emotions, and that's okay. It's more how we react to them. So we have these big emotions, and we choose to react by slamming the door or ripping up our homework or yelling or isolating and not talking to anyone. That reaction will have later consequences. But if we choose to have this big emotion and feel it and recognize it, and then go to someone we care about and knows care about us and say, I'm feeling a lot right now, and having a conversation, or having that big emotion and going to journal in our notebook or do some art or go on a jog and get out some of that energy, then that reaction will have a positive response. We'll have a more strengthening resiliency factor. And so it's about connecting to your kids and saying, it's okay, you have these emotions. I'm here for you. I see you, and I want to help you ride them out. And then we can work with them in a more whole brain state to find what solutions or what supports are they needing. And really helping them feel seen and met. I'm sure all parents, especially a lot of parents I've worked with, a lot of kids come up to them and they say, "You don't know who I am. I don't feel seen." And a lot of that is coming from these missed opportunities of connecting to your kids emotionally. And especially because kids are in a very kind of self-inward state. To them, they really need to directly be seen and really pausing and saying, "I see this is hard for you. I see this is overwhelming, and I'm here for you. And I am here for you when you are ready and when we can come up with how to support you. But I'm also here with you while you're having these big emotions." And that's hard to do because we also have big emotions. But the better we have our own emotional regulation, the more connected we are with our own mental health and own well-being, the more we can connect with our kids in these ways. So here is a little strategy breakdown. Dr. Siegel calls it the 4 S's to help support our kids and to implement some of these ideas. So we want to help them feel seen, not just seen by the eyes, like I see you over there, but really the perception that I have empathy and I see you deeply. And this sense that the mind behind the behavior, which Dr. Siegel calls that mind sight. So that ability to recognize when are we flipping our lids and being able to meet them with their emotions first. Also safe. We want to make sure our kids feel safe and that they are not met with too many big or frightening emotions. Because if they're already in this heightened state and we kind of come at them with a more elevated voice or a more aggressive language, that may scare them a little bit. Even if it is unconscious, we're not meaning to scare them, but there can be signals that our kids receive that instill some fear and hurt, and that's going to pull them away from us instead of bringing them closer. Then we want to work on helping them feel soothed. So things like, how do we respond? And if talking in a more soothing tone of voice. How do we deal with big emotions and situations? And reminding them that you are there to help comfort them. And lastly, secure. We want to help them develop an internalized sense of well-being. So the more that those well-being factors I talked about earlier, the more those are established, the more they feel comfortable in their school, in their friendships, in their religious practice, in their education, in their extracurriculars, then they are more open to connecting with you as their parent. So really working on all these things.
Dr. Nazarian, we had a question. What if your child through puberty says things like, "I don't want to talk now, I want to be left alone"? Do we honor that in the moment and walk away and come back later?
I think so. I think the first question I always say is safety. Are they going to go and have a reaction like I talked about earlier that may have some destructive, isolating patterns? If you worry about that, then you want to help keep them safe and say, well, I at least want you where I can see you and support you. If you feel like your child is safe and this isn't too much of a concern, then definitely having a bit of like, I call it kind of like a contingency plan of, okay, I know I see you're feeling a lot. You may go to your room, but maybe in about 15 to 30 minutes, I may just come in and check in on you. And that shows the child that you see them, allowing them the space to be independent, but that you are also a secure base that will follow up and support them. And check in with your child and say, is it okay if I come in about 30 minutes and just check in or bring you a glass of water or see what you'd like for dinner? And having the child then build autonomy and say, okay, yes, I'd love that, would be great. So if that kind of balance of their independence, but you're still there as a secure base. We definitely don't want to overwhelm them. If they are saying, I want to be alone, you got to meet them where they're at. Say, I hear you want to be alone. Just know I'm here for you when you're ready to talk. Does that help?
So I'll just give 2 cents as well, because at school we do have students who will find themselves in my office and they have big emotions. Certainly that's likely what brought them to me. And sometimes they're not ready to talk if I ask what happened. And it probably has to do with, the emotions, and then maybe not feeling safe being, in my presence. And so when I sense the resistance or that they're not ready, I'll say, okay, it looks like you're not ready to talk. I'm going to continue to do my work here, and I'll just wait for you. Whenever you're ready, you let me know. And literally, it doesn't take a long time, but I think, again, respecting and not pushing when they're not ready, and really making it their opportunity to say to you, okay, I'm ready now, to talk. Shows them that you're respecting them, respecting their feelings. But like Dr. Nazarian said, I'm here and I'm a support for you, and if they're not feeling safe, that is, pushing makes them feel even more unsafe. So I found that that's been effective, and I guess that something like that at home could work as well.
Yeah, lovely example. Yeah, that is a wonderful way to approach it. You're creating their space. You're not judging or criticizing them, but you're letting them know, I am here. I'm not going to abandon or leave you because these emotions are too big. I am self-regulated enough in myself that I'm here when you feel ready. Right. So ways to build resiliency in our children. We want to help maintain regular daily routines, especially coming out of the pandemic where routine was thrown out the window and we lost a lot of, what we called normal work. I'm sure a lot of your own lives have shifted from working to offices, maybe working from home, being on a computer all day. So a lot of things have changed recently. And so the more we can create daily routines, and that's simple things like breakfast time, after school pickup, doing our homework, saying our prayers, maybe watching a TV show together, going on a walk, having dinner, even doing dishes together, having a little routine. I do the rinsing, you do the drying, you do the putting away. Those kind of daily moments can help instill comfort and trust and regularness in their lives. And that supports greatly with resilience. Take a break. When we feel big emotions, it's okay. Take a pause. Maybe go lay down, get some fresh air, drink a nice warm cup of tea, taking a break and reminding your kids and ourselves, parents, that taking a break is a great way to support ourselves. Teaching our kids about self-care. So self-care is more than just going on a spa day. Self-care is maybe journaling or doing some art or listening to their favorite music. And they really learn from modeling and what they see. So the more you parents are also taking care of yourself, the more likely that they're going to look up to you and say, oh, my parents go and they, have a date night every once in a while, or they go on their morning walks, or they connect with their friends, and that form of self-care, they will also start practicing and instilling it and seeing the benefits. Lots of nurturing of a positive self-view. So lots of affirmations, reminding, our kids that they are strong and smart and resilient and capable, and having a lot of language in a positive tone. So instead of, oh my God, you failed, how could you not be using your brain, becomes, oh my gosh, you didn't do so well on this test. What are some ways I could support you study better for the next time? Or what do you think got in the way of you not doing the best that you can? So really being thoughtful on how we're connecting and referring to our kids. Keeping things in perspective and maintaining a hopeful outlook. So always trying to have a bigger picture of things instead of just a narrow-minded view, especially with kids, right? They come in and they are getting into different conflicts or have friendship drama, and it kind of helps to maybe like, oh, well, what's your friend's perspective of what happened, or what about the other kid's perspective? And kind of trying to maintain a hopeful view of like, oh, they didn't invite you to the movie. That may be hard, but maybe it's because they knew you had dance practice and they weren't sure if you would like the movie because it's not really your favorite genre. So trying to think of different perspectives and opening our kids' mindsets.
Dr. Nazar, we have a couple more questions.
Oh, yes.
How can we deal with children who have extreme resistance to routine and rules, especially following COVID? One parent believes that maybe her kids are rebelling as a reaction to the restrictions that occurred last year.
That definitely is a hardship. And I think what we're going to find and what we are finding, because what happened with the pandemic is everything got thrown out the window. The thing that they felt routine got completely shifted, and they no longer had control. And when you no longer have control, then you start to try to find these other outlets for control that are not necessarily healthy. And that's what you're seeing as maybe that rebellion, is they're trying to maybe figure out ways they can control other aspects of their life, since so much was thrown out the window. They didn't have control when they went out to see their friends. They didn't have control of going to their school. They didn't have control of not having to do a FaceTime instead of a party, or do a drive-by birthday party instead of blowing their own candles on their birthday cake. So we're going to see a bit of that resistance in them needing control. And as parents, kind of to pause and say, you know, what is it that's hard about this routine? And trying to meet them where they're at. So if they're, for example, in the morning, we hope that they wake up, brush their teeth, change, make their bed, get their backpack, and we go to school. At the beginning, really first starting to break it down into smaller things. So first asking them, which of these activities that we hope to do in the morning do you want to do first? Or do you feel most ready to do? Oh, I guess brushing my teeth. I can't go to school with stinky breath. Okay, so let's start there. So we do a few days, a week of that, and really ground and build that. And then you say, okay, you got this teeth brushing thing down. Okay, which of these next things do you want to get done? Okay, I guess I'll make sure to have my backpack ready in the morning because I need that for school. Okay, we kind of incrementally build these routines gradually. And as we're doing that, we're building in that positive thinking, that affirmation, that, wow, you did such a great job. I'm so proud of you. I know this was hard, but I see you really putting an effort, and really that encouragement. And when they're not doing it, really not meeting them with your lid flipped, right? We want to meet them with, what's going on that this isn't working? How can I support you to do it? And so being in check also with our own emotions, because it can be very frustrating when they're not getting some of these things in line, but how we meet them and connect can make a big difference. Are there other questions?
Yeah, another one is, what if they say they don't want to do it? So for example, going for a walk or doing dishes with the family. Like, what do you do as a parent then when your kid resists? Any examples of things that you'd want to do as a family?
Mm-hmm. I'd be first curious as to how come you don't want to do this, and kind of meet them where they're at. Say, what's going on that this isn't your ideal activity? And then giving them the opportunity to choose. And this can look in two ways. One way is you can give them options. You say, it's Friday night. We're going to do family time. It's part of our Friday night. We can either go on a walk, we could watch a movie together, we could go out to dinner. Which of those 3 things do you want to do? And then they are building autonomy. They get a choice in one of those things, and then they're more likely to be engaged. You can also just leave it open-ended. Say we have family time. A great thing I do with a lot of my families is I make flashcards, and every family member gets 3 flashcards. And you say, write one activity you would love to do on each flashcard. And then we have a little box or a bag. And every Friday night, someone grabs a flashcard and we're doing one of those activities. And then they can't complain too much. We all had equal opportunity. We're all going to do what you want to do. We're all going to do what I want to do. And then it becomes to a connected time versus I'm the parent. This is what I said we're going to do. Those are some ideas that may help.
Okay, one more question, inshallah, and then we can continue the presentation.
Perfect.
This is a follow-up to the original question about the child resisting, talking about something.
Mm-hmm.
But what if out of anger, a child kind of bubbles over into disrespectful behavior, maybe with a rude tone or yelling at a parent? Does a parent tolerate that? Do they punish them? Do they, show that no matter how they speak to elders, that, what would they do?
Mm-hmm.
That we're there no matter what, no matter how they speak to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I think that's a balance too of your own parenting choices. If you have chosen to be a bit more of an authoritative parent or more of a relaxed parent, there's different parenting styles. But as psychologists and as family therapists, what we find to be the most effective form of parenting is a balance of the structure and the rigidity of, we don't curse in this house, we don't say bad words to our elders, we don't name call in this house. You have those rules established, but then also meeting them emotionally of when you say those things, it seems like it's coming from a really hurtful place. And I want to understand the reason for you saying those. There may be a slight consequence for saying those, because that's part of the rules we've established, like your phone getting taken away, or you don't get to go out with your friends this weekend. But you also need to have the balance of what emotionally checking in with them is leading them to that point. What has pushed them to feel that this is the only way you can communicate to me as your parent? I am here to listen to you. You don't need to make this big red flag, this big sound, these big gestures for me to listen. But we have to first establish that secure attachment in order for that to also happen. So it's kind of the day-to-day building of attachment and trust and love and emotional connection, but then also having some of the rules and being consistent with the rules as well. If one day there's no consequence for it, the next day there's a very harsh, extreme consequence, that's very confusing for a child. And then they're more likely to not know what choices to make and feel a lot more overwhelmed. So also, the consistency with the emotional meeting is a great balance if we are finding that.
I was going to add something as well. I think there's nothing wrong with establishing the boundary. That, of course, you establish it in front, like as Dr. Nazarian was saying, these are the rules of the house, like we don't yell, we're not disrespectful, we're never rude. And certainly elders and youth both have rights, that you don't yell as well, right? So it's mutual. And if a child crosses the line, I think sometimes they need to know that they crossed the line. And it's completely okay to say, your tone right now is not something I'm going to accept. I understand you're upset. Calm down. When you're calm, I'm willing to talk more about it. But with this tone, I'm not going to engage with you. And you can disconnect yourself and literally like give yourself a timeout and say, come and see me when you're ready, when
Yes.
you're ready to talk about this in a nice way.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Setting the boundary, letting them know this is a limit, but I'm here when you're ready, but not in these circumstances. Right? Good. So I'm being mindful of time, which is perfect because we're on to mindfulness. So I'll do a quick check-in around mindfulness. So mindfulness, a lot of what we're talking about is strengthened through this tool of mindfulness. It's a very hot topic. You may see it in magazines. There's lots of apps for it. And what mindfulness really is the practice of being fully aware and in the moment. So what we're talking about, these big emotions, these big reactions, these connections, the more we're in the here and now, the better we're going to be at it. So the more you are present and not thinking of, oh, tomorrow I got to do this and I have this meeting and my grocery list and all this, or thinking, oh, yesterday I regret this, I should have done that. If we put those thoughts at bay and really bring myself here, we're more likely to build these connections, this attachment, this resiliency, and all this good stuff that we want with our kids. Benefits of mindfulness, it can really be helpful in helping that emotional regulation, boosting energy, helping sleep, relieving stress and anxiety, improving self-esteem. And for kids especially, it helps them with self-control, teaches them coping skills, managing these big emotions. So all the stuff we're saying we want and we need, this little mindfulness is a great tool to have in our pockets. It helps us with self-awareness and acceptance and love and all those things that are going to help build the best possible versions of us. How do we do it? I have lots of worksheets and resources too that we'll share with you parents, but there are great resources. There are apps. Headspace is a fantastic app around mindfulness. There's even a show on Netflix about it. You could do one episode a night with your kids to kind of learn more about it. And there's great YouTube videos. And it's simple day-to-day tasks and tuning in to the moment. So things like deep breathing, checking in on your emotions, taking a mindful walk. I love to do, I call it a rainbow walk, where we go on a walk and we say, we got to find one color of the rainbow as we're walking. We got to find a yellow flower, maybe a purple bird, a blue sign. And it's really tuning in to what is happening in that present moment. You could even do it while you're driving, thinking of every color as you're driving, and everyone has to pick one out. Positive affirmations, listening to music, especially, as being Middle Eastern, I think music is such a deep part of our culture. And so listening and playing music and connecting to it can be a great tool of being mindful. Tuning into our 5 senses, so our sight, taste, smell, sound, feeling. This is great too during mealtime, really being like, what are we eating today? What are we tasting? What are we smelling? What do you see? What is the texture like? And that moment of slowing down and connecting is going to build this mindfulness and self-regulation, both internally and externally for us. And doing it as a family is something I feel is so impactful. Because like I said, your kids are looking up to you. The more you're doing something, the more likely that they will also develop these healthy habits. So when you're rushing in the morning to make your coffee, even if you pause and you say, oh, I'm going to take 1 minute, 60 seconds to really enjoy this cup of coffee, they'll pick up on that and they may start enjoying their orange juice or their Eggo waffles in the morning as well. And that's that simple moment of tuning in to the here and now. Why is all this important? Mental health exists. I know there are a lot of stigmas. I know there's resistance or feelings of, oh, not in our community, not in my house, not in who we are. The truth is, mental health exists. We have a lot of adolescents and teens with depression and anxiety, grief. This COVID pandemic was an experience of trauma in the sense that they lost control, there was immense fear, there was intense emotions, and we're still living through it. And that has a deep impact. We're already seeing data and research that teen girls and boys have increasing rates of anxiety, depression, sleep issues, withdrawal from their family, and aggressive behaviors. And I know it's hard to hear, but this age, this pinnacle middle school age, is where we can start seeing some of these things really come out and developing. And there are rates of self-harm, of depression, isolation, anxiety, panic attacks. And a lot of the times the clients I see, I wonder, what if there was earlier intervention? What if there were more opportunities for these kids to learn how to better cope, or these parents how to support them and to connect in being a preventable measure for their mental health?
There's a quick question about the Netflix series. Is it called Headspace?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
It's very cute little cartoons, and it's very narrated very nicely. And they have, the app has an adult and a parent and a child version as well. It's a fantastic resource. So how can we support mental health? Things like this, what we're doing right now, you taking this time and this opportunity to learn about what's going on, to get the information, to be curious and to be open. That is a tremendous first step. And then it's about using these skills, checking in more with our kids, meeting them where they're at, understanding what is going on in their knockers, why are they doing the things that they're doing, and taking the time to be thoughtful and creating these practices to support them. I'm gonna pass it on to you.
So I'm really excited to share with you that I have worked with Dr. Nazarian for us to do some opportunities with our kids directly. So inshallah, in January, we're going to do a 4-part workshop with our kids, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade separately, where they're basically going to do some art, mindfulness using art, and using some of the techniques to help with coping with their feelings, right? As they have these big feelings, being able to self-regulate, for them to be thoughtful in terms of processing those feelings and using art as a foundation to do that. So we're very pleased that Dr. Nazarian's agreed to make the trek from LA to Orange County for 4 times through the time between January to about right before Ramadan, inshallah, around March timeline. So Dr. Nazarian, can you share a little bit about what you might be doing with the kids?
Yes. So full disclosure, in these settings, I am not a therapist. I am an educator and a workshop facilitator. I separate, my therapy hat, and I put on a different hat when going into the community and running these workshops and support events. And so that kind of big disclaimer, I'm here to use my knowledge and experience as a psychologist to support in the intervention and in the prevention that we're doing, and my expertise in guiding and supporting. And we're going to really kind of implement activities that I hope your kids will enjoy and I have seen be very impactful, with using art or group activities as a form to talk about mental health, give them some psychoeducation, much like I did here today, understanding what's a good choice or a bad choice when we have these big emotions, having a safe space to explore our feelings, expressing ourselves through art, and tools to really support their well-being, like the mindfulness, like the deep breathing, like the journaling, and how can they feel better and safe in a fun, way that really gives them a space and an opportunity. And I have to say that schools, New Horizon bringing this to the school is so important and so honorable, because this is the new wave of healthcare in a lot of ways, integrating mental health with our education and even physical health in an all-encompassing way. Because as we talked about, wellness is all of those layers in one. And the more opportunities we have that kind of overlap, the better it's going to be. So I know we're almost out of time. Are there any final questions?
So yes, there was one question really regarding eating, and especially as it relates to body image. So this question basically said that her child is eating poorly and that she's very thin and very careful about what and how much she eats. And she talks about how none of the girls in her class really feel comfortable or confident in their bodies.
Mm-hmm. That's, I think, a lot more layered and complex. So I may just say some overarching ideas, but I do feel if you have ever genuine, true concerns, to reach out to a professional, if that's your medical doctor or other mental health care providers, especially if you're seeing major changes. Any quick changes at this age are definite things to take note and seek professional care. But definitely things like body image and eating and feeling comfortable in who they are, especially females, unfortunately, with the way our society is, can create a lot of anxiety and pressure and that negative self-talk. So the more you create a safe space for your child to come talk to you or to feel safe with other providers, and that positive affirmation and encouragement and self-love, the more that can support. But I do feel if it is a real concern, to seek out more support through other professional outlets as well.
So can you give any insight into what the activity, like I see this beautiful thing here. Can you share a little bit about what that is and how it's going to connect?
Yes. So I have a real specialization in art therapy. And I think art therapy sometimes gets thrown around, but the truth is my master's degree was a dual program in art therapy. I had excessive training, understanding of the neurological benefits, the specific mediums, and what the art interventions do. I've had supervision. I am registered with the state of California. So I have a real expertise of how psychology and art combine. So it's not just an art class. It's different than what you may get from taking an art class, because I have the understanding of what's going on in the brain and the body and the mental health side of things. And so the things we do, this hand example, of mandalas, sometimes that repetitive patterns can be very self-soothing. It's practicing mindfulness. It can help connect neural pathways that can help with that emotional regulation and anxiety. And also, art gives us a new form of language and expressing ourselves. I think when we're stuck with just words and linguistically, it's a lot harder to say what we're feeling. But if I have paint and red and texture and colors, it's a lot more expressive. And as we're talking, we don't want to bog down emotions. We want to feel them and connect to them. And that's how we can better regulate them and support them. And that's the opportunity I'm hoping to provide. And really the magic I have seen in my work, and how more impactful it is than just us kind of talking about it, but really connecting and feeling. And especially this age group, especially our culture as well. I've done a lot of workshops in the Armenian and the Middle Eastern community, in which doing art and this creative side can be such an open door and more powerful and impactful. So, and it's really unique and special, I have to say too. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping it'll support your kids, give them great tool and base, and be kind of this time for them to explore and have fun and learn about themselves. And hopefully they come home and talk to you parents about it. And it can be a way to start these conversations, which can be hard to start at times.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nazarian.
Mm-hmm.
We've been answering questions as we've been going through. If you have another one, feel free to drop it in the chat or in the Q&A. If there's nothing else, then if nothing pops up, inshallah, then we're going to close this. Just want to extend my sincere appreciation to you, Dr. Nazarian, for your time and your expertise and what you will be bringing to us in the future, inshallah, to support the kids to develop positive coping skills, maybe using this art platform as a tool to connect to themselves, connect their emotions, be able to regulate and also problem solve and think through those feelings. Thank you to all the parents who joined us. I really appreciate your time and your commitment, of course, to your own kids and your families. I know it's not easy to take time out in the middle of your day like this, but inshallah, may you gain every blessing. May your children also receive the blessings of your efforts, inshallah. We had one pop-up question. It's, how do I know when my child is exaggerating his or her emotions?
I'd be curious what makes us feel it's exaggerated per se versus how they're genuinely feeling. And to remind us too, to them, it probably feels so real. And that's part of that brain development stuff. You know, they're not really thinking through, they're literally maybe experiencing it at that high voltage emotional state. But I'd also be curious if it feels almost acting or a little dramatic as to how come they feel the need to put that on to get maybe the attention or to be seen, right? It may bring us back to that question of, are you feeling seen? And what could I do to support you to feel seen before we reach this maybe more theatrical expression of our emotions? But, you know, it depends. They could just be, that's as real to them as it is, or it can be maybe a tactic or strategy of, you know, when I cry extra loud, that's when my parents come check in on me and kind of, well, maybe I'm going to check in on you every 10 minutes, even if they first grin and don't really want it or resistant. They may be asking for more opportunities to be seen. And this may be their only tactic that they could have come up with. But I'd be curious and ask your kid too, what's going on there.
Okay, one last question, inshallah. My son believes it's okay to hurt someone's emotions if he's protecting other kids from being picked on. What do you think about that? Do you think that's okay?
I'd be curious as to what is hurting someone's emotions. Is that name calling or being disrespectful? And if that's the case, really kind of educating them and understanding what is assertive communication. How can you set the boundary with other kids without having it to go to that aggressive side? How can you say, it's not okay when you treat my friend this way. We're not going to play with you until you treat us kindly and walk away, versus the name calling or the more aggressive emotional hurting someone's emotions level too. So maybe too checking in on that range of how do we communicate. It is hard. You're trying to stand up for this other kid, but your strategy of communicating it is actually probably heightening and making the situation worse.
Yeah. So I think the follow-up was that if a child is making fun of a friend, then they respond by making fun of them to protect their friend.
Mhm.
So, you know, I'll step in because that sounds more like something that might be acting out within the school, and certainly feel free to reach out to me and we can talk more thoroughly about it. But fighting fire with fire does not work. It just makes
No.
the fire bigger.
Yes, an
So,
eye for an eye makes a blind man, right?
yeah, exactly. So I think we need to work on a few things. One is, you know, sometimes them stepping in that way can make the problem bigger. So we need to find a way, if he truly wants it to stop, to be able to do that in a way that actually makes it stop, or elicits the support of others who can help him in that process. And I think each situation is unique and each dynamic is unique. And so, again, if we talk about it, maybe that'll help us to unwind it together, inshallah.
Yeah, seeing if maybe a little separation is helpful, or a little healing conversation.
And also acknowledging the motive, which is that he's protective of his friend, that he's an ally to his friend. So all of that is coming from a really great place. But then we need to know how to be a good ally, you know, and not make the problem worse. So we'll work on that together, inshallah. Again, Dr. Nazarian and all the parents who attended, thank you so much. Wishing you a blessed day, inshallah, a great week ahead, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.